Toastmasters. Thank you very much for the introduction, Madam Chair, and welcome guests. All of you in this room have read a comic book. Even if you have looked at one that has no words, you have read a comic book. And why is that? This is why. This is a comic book script. Everything you see and read in a comic book comes from one of these. This is the most essential part of a comic book you will ever see. Whether it's good art or bad art, it doesn't matter. This is what makes or breaks it. And this is what a typical one will look like. I say typical because there are actually a lot of variety, and I've handed out a copy for you that we'll discuss a little bit later. So this is what I mean. This was a series. I wasn't too fond of the art on this series, but I never once considered not collecting it anymore because the script was so engaging, so well done, that even if I wasn't fond of looking at it, the story kept me driving, kept me going, kept me wanting to collect it. So here's another script here. When you look at a typical script, you'll get a few things in here that each one contains. It'll tell you the title, the pages, who's working on it, and then they start laying out how that comic book is actually laid out. There's little things here, and again, you can see those things in the copy I've handed out. But there's little expressions in there that translate to when it actually gets put down on the page and when it gets illustrated. So if you look at something like this, I showed you a flash script right there. If you read the title that I pointed out, there are a few things in here. This is something that's called a spread in the script. It basically takes up the entire page when you open it up. There's no little panels, it's everything. It's spread across the two pages. So that's the sort of thing it is there. Then you got something like this. SFX. Yes, like in the movies, sound effects. You're doing a comic book, you're writing it out, you have to write it out for the artist. So when you go along in the script, you'll see this written out, and it translates into something like this. All the bams, all the pows, all the whacks. That's how they're displayed. Then you also have these things, narration or caption boxes. We're all familiar with these. And these are a very useful tool, because they allow things like narration. They also allow the reader to get into the mind of the certain characters. Like down here, Batman, those boxes over there, they're actually what he's thinking. What's going on in his mind as he's jumping down off that building. And these here, these are actually more narrative boxes that a third party is talking about what's going on with the characters. You also see these. Little things like this. Captain America, OP. And there you go, you can see what he's talking about. It translates into that one there. What does OP mean? Well, what do you think it means? What does it look like when you look at that?
Opposite page.
OP? No. It's in this panel, off panel. You can see his words come in from off panel. So when you look at the script, you see OP, it means off panel. That character is speaking from off panel. And another cool thing here, you can see his word balloons, which is what these things are. They're connected. So again, when you go down to the script, again, it continues off panel connected, blah, 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 which matches here, blah, 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 blah. So those are the sorts of things you see in the script. The artist needs some direction. Again, there's other cute terms that you'll see when you look at these things that you don't really register. So again, also we got Batman family here doing some fun stuff, right? So what is it? We're looking at it, oops, go back there. So we're looking at it here. So panel 1, that's this one up here, number 1, and panel 8, the last one down, panel 9 rather, the last one down here. They're both laid out in the same way. Their description, worm's eye view or an upshot, and they're also splash panels. So what does that mean? Very basic. Worm's eye view, it's like you're looking down here, okay, what's going on up there? That's your worm's eye view, because you're down on the ground and you're looking at what's going on. And the same thing for this down here. The other panels as well, they're called inset panels. Because while 1 and 9 are splash panels, which we talked about at the start, there's no little border on them. You have these panels inset on top of those. So that means that's how that's laid out in a comic book script typically. Of course, with the bird's eye, you also get with the worm's eye, you also get a bird's eye view. Whereas before we were looking down here, this you look down and see what's going on. And that's how that's presented in a script as well. Now, what the heck is this? It doesn't look very artistic, does it? No, sorry. Well, when an artist gets a script, he doesn't go right to drawing it all nice and fine and refined. He has to sort of work out what is his composition like? You know, where is he going to place things? And that's what this thing is. This thing is called a thumbnail. And some artists are really uptight when they do a thumbnail. You know, it's practically so well rendered that it can go right to being printed. Well, others will do something a little sketchy like this. It basically puts out all the main things that are happening within the script. Then you can just work things out and sort of change things. So like for the first one here, you have panel 1, first character is seen from behind, he's talking to a woman. Panel 2, 3, blah, 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 blah. So again, it allows the artist to work out. Like here, okay, he wasn't happy with what he was doing here, so he just sketched it out again on another page and see if that works better. So that's the kind of thing you do. Get a script, it allows the artist to work with the writer and see how well things work and what doesn't work. So we start putting things together. Here's a finished page. And again, we do the same sort of thing. It tells you what page you're looking at. It tells you your first panel. Again, it's an inset panel because it's on top of a spread or a splash panel that has no border on it. So again, we can see here what we talked about earlier. Sound effects, vip, vip, vip. If you look over here, vip, vip, vip. That's your sound effect. Put a gun going on. And here you got the one guy talking. And here you can see where the little adaptation is. The original script has this guy here saying, but in the drawing, they didn't put in it. So then you get to the other one, you can see speaking on his radio, and you can see how this is underlined here in the text, but it actually goes to get printed. That's also adapted there, so it matches what's there. And again, we have the panel 2 and panel 2. So that's part of the big spread. So here's the other one, the big spread. So you have your big character, you have your, again, slightly bit of an upshot, you're seeing what's going on, and you have your sound effects. Those work? And when those 2 pages are put together, they kind of look like this. Well, they exactly look like this. So now, everything I said about variety, you see that's a nice long thing. If you notice the other script I showed you, or the one you have in front of you, it's not very long, right? That's an entire page that I gave you in front of you. This, if you take a look, page 2, panel 1. That's one panel. That writer put a lot of effort into just that one panel. And that's an example of the sort of variety you can get in a comic book script. It's really sort of up to the writer and the artist, the way they work together and what they can do and how things work. But that's the way that the guy that wrote that one, by the way. His name's Alan Moore. He's a very prolific writer, very famous for doing things like The Watchmen. And when it comes to the perhaps the antithesis, thank you, of him would be this guy, Stan Lee. Everybody knows Stan Lee. Spider-Man, Captain America, X-Men. When he started writing back in the 60s, he wrote everything for Marvel Comics. Just about everything they did, he wrote. So obviously, he couldn't sit down there and write panel 1, guy gets up, panel 2, guy walks over, panel 3 with a bird in the background, blah, blah, blah. He just didn't have the time. So he developed a script like this. This is his entire script for one issue. Oh, sorry. His entire script for one issue, right there. Notice no captions, no this, no pages. It's totally up to the artist to do. So you can see there's a great variety in which scripts come. And there's a lot of info in there that all work together to entertaining all of you folks. So, thank you.